What is up, fellow summoners? Welcome to the channel. Today, you may have guessed by the title of this video that this content is going to be something very different from anything else that I brought to the channel thus far, which please give me like a minute and a half, 2 minutes at the most to explain kind of this new series idea, and then we'll jump right into the main content of discussion, which will be the new Alliance War map and everything that encompasses that. So just as a quick introduction, for a while now, I would say maybe 3 or 4 months ago in a live stream, subscriber, and I wish I could remember his name, who it was, mentioned that like, hey, you should do an MCOC podcast. And that is something that really intrigued me because I don't know about you guys, but I personally use the other content creators' live streams and videos and as like background noise. While I'm working here at the office, or while I'm grinding at home in the evenings if I'm not live, if I'm exercising or something, I'm working in a room, painting, whatever it might be. Like I have those live streams and those videos pulled up just so that I can kind of follow along. It's entertaining. I enjoy just listening. So from that aspect, I've always wanted to kind of provide that form of entertainment because I know there's probably a lot of other people who do the same thing. But also, right now, between my personal business, which I run my own business, I've got a million things going on top of the fact that we're getting ready to have our second child in a couple of days. I have very limited time right now. So I think all of that just kind of comes together perfectly here because I can sit down and I can still interact with you guys and talk about issues that are going on without necessarily having to spend, like 5 hours editing a video together. Which, don't worry, that's not going away. I'm not going to be replacing my content with podcasts only. At the most, this will be something that I bring to the channel maybe once a week at most. But I think it's a good avenue, like I said, to provide some background noise for people who are using it that way, but also as an opportunity to bring in other content creators or other subscribers, to introduce themselves, to be part of the discussion as kind of a meet and greet thing. Who knows where this is going to go. But anyway, that was my quick 2-minute introduction there. Please let me know, well, I should say, please listen to the whole video and then let me know if this is something that you enjoy, something you'd like to see more of. And I'm sure it will change drastically over time, but this is just kind of my jumping off point. And with that out of the way, let's jump right into kind of the main discussion that I want to have here. And it is all kind of centered around the new Alliance War, which the update was announced, I think it was it's like Wednesday, a week ago, I think, is when the information was dropped. And at that point, I was, I don't want to say, I was pretty optimistic. There were a couple of things that I saw that gave me a little bit of pause and, I don't know, I guess just a little bit of concern. But ultimately, I was pretty excited. I mean, I've been running the same node now for like 12 straight months. Same nodes over and over, same path, same characters. And I realized that, I could have switched paths back and forth, but once you get into your alliance, you get into your battle group, it's just so much easier just to stay with what you're comfortable with. But it was just becoming stale. So from that aspect, I was very excited just at the thought of a change. Whether the change was going to be good or bad, I was just excited to have a new path and to have some new nodes to plan for and to play against. So I was excited. On the other hand, though, I was a little nervous because I wasn't really sure how taking defensive kills away was really going to change. I know a lot of people were worried about that, worried about it being, the highest paying alliance is going to win every war. I was also a little bit concerned with the fact that they are now revealing all classes on all nodes. There's no guessing or trying to figure out who the character might be. That's just kind of revealed to you from the start. So those were kind of my excited points and my optimistic points, and then some things that I was a little bit nervous about. So then we finally had the map drop. And I think it was Wednesday. The map dropped. I wasn't really able to take a look at any of it, however, until Thursday. Thursday morning, I sat down. We were in our defensive placement mode for the very first war. And my plan was to go ahead, since I was trying to sit down and go through all the nodes myself, I was just going to make a video series out of it. That way, it would be just as much of a help for me, forcing me to kind of sit down and walk through everything and learn it all, kind of along with you guys as well. So that was my plan. And about, I don't know, maybe halfway through that video, I was just bored to tears. I felt like I was saying the exact same thing over and over and over again, because what I was seeing was a lot of very generic nodes, and what I mean by that is nodes that just have like an armor up, an attack boost, even things like increased poison, increased bleed damage. I still kind of all lump that into a very generic sense. And it was making me a little bit nervous. It was at that point that I realized, like, I don't want to say the map was going to be easy, but just the fact that it didn't matter how many times you died, you could see which class it was, and these nodes didn't seem very difficult. I was just very, very nervous. And ultimately, so we did start our offensive, no, we started our offensive side last night, and kind of all of my worries came home to roost, so to speak. I pull up the spectate mode to look. I'm running path number 7. I can see all the way down the path. It's all science characters, which there's no guesswork there. In high tiers, it's basically Spider-Man and Rhino, 5-star Spider-Man, Rhino. That's who you're going to run up against. There aren't too many Electros up in the higher tiers. And that was like 90% of my path was science. So I just threw in Gwenpool, and I threw in my rank 4 5-star Winter Soldier for class advantage. And then there were only 2 other nodes that weren't. We had 1 Mystic and 1 Mutant. I knew the Mutant was going to be Nightcrawler. The Mystic was probably a Magic Juggernaut Mordo, so I was just going to bring Power Control along for that. And sure enough, that is exactly how it all played out. I blew right through everything. Not even playing very well, I blew right through everything. Because not only are the nodes less difficult, but you know the class you're running against. You have class advantage in every single fight because you can plan ahead. And it was at this point that I thought, you know what, most of the time my personality is one where I'll kind of sit back and wait to see what everybody else is saying, or wait until I run the content a couple more times or have a good understanding of it before I'll try and give my opinion. But honestly, I don't think that my gut reaction, the way I'm feeling now, is going to change in a week from now or in a month from now after I've run 10 of these Alliance Wars. I ultimately am, I don't want to say that I'm mad. It's not like that kind of frustration. It's more so I'm just disappointed, I guess, is really what it comes down to. We have seen over the last year, especially here recently with the story quest Act number 5 dropping in the game, we have seen a lot of new buffs. Whether you like them or not, you can't disagree with the fact that we've seen something new basically in every single chapter in Act number 5. Whether it be just kind of quirky things like your class advantages being switched upside down. Bane is a huge pain, but there's a lot of strategy and kind of playing around that. There's a lot of skill that's involved, and timing wise. You've got things like I can't even remember the name of, actually there's like 15 different names, but in 5.3 that was just dropped, you know, there's only certain nodes or certain classes that don't have their attack power reduced, things like that, and a million other things that I'm missing that we could have added into Alliance War. It's not like they had to do any additional planning. It's stuff that is already in the game that could have been copied and pasted directly over into Alliance War that would just give it a little bit of something that it's missing right now. But I think the further, the larger disappointment I think that I have is that for whatever reason, we, and I say we like I'm part of the development team, but the game, it seems just very linear. Like there's no outside of the box thinking per se. And what I mean by that is, you know, we have our Alliance War, and there's going to be, you know, there's going to be 8 or 9 different paths. Everybody's going to be assigned a path. Make sure you take down your link nodes before everybody can move forward to get to the final boss. It's just very generic nodes, like, but that layout and that process is not necessarily the way that it has to be. You know, we were just throwing around just some random ideas last night. And one of the ideas that I absolutely loved is the idea of having some sort of like an ambush node, a couple of nodes, to where you don't know necessarily when they're going to happen. You don't know what character it's going to be. And you can even randomize it further. Like, let's say on defensive placement, there are 5 ambush nodes. I don't get to pick which character I want on the ambush. But as a battle group, we decide, okay, these are the 5 characters that we want to put on ambush, and then they are thrown randomly on nodes throughout. You know, that would give kind of an intriguing, interesting aspect. You wouldn't really be able to necessarily plan for one specific fight. And that's just one very basic idea that I think would have a big impact. And it's that kind of outside of the box thinking that I think Alliance War now needs more than ever. Another big part that really concerns me long-term for Alliance War is that by removing by removing points that are rewarded for defensive kills, it just takes away that competitive edge in every single fight. A little bit of the intensity, kind of the nervousness. You're really focusing hard, just trying your very best to somehow make it through a fight, because you know if you don't, you're going to be giving the enemy points, which at the end of the day could determine a win or a loss. But you just don't have that. And I understand if they want to remove that aspect, that's fine, but there are other ways to implement that same sort of intensity back into Alliance Wars. One quick idea that I thought of is if every single battle group started with a set number of item usage points, let's say that their point total was 10,000, and every time you died, you know, you wouldn't necessarily, the enemy wouldn't gain points, you wouldn't lose points. If you can't get through a node, if you're outclassed against another alliance, it is what it is. But when you start spending, let's say you want to use a potion or you want to use a revive, it starts chipping away at that 10,000 item use total. So every time you use a potion, you know, you lose 100 points. Every time you use a revive, you lose 200 points. So in that sense, you know, you can spend if you want to, but it's going to reward those that are more highly skilled. It's not so much the quote-unquote pay to win, which I know people absolutely detest. But I think more importantly than the pay to win is you just lose that competitive edge when you say, okay, you can die as many times as you want, you can use as many items as you want. And I think over the long haul, you know, without that competitive advantage, it just feels like another, you know, arena fight where there's just no real value for doing well and for not dying. You're not rewarded for your skill, which, like I said, I think it hurts Alliance War in the long run. Again, along the lines, since we're talking about kind of being rewarded for your skill, I've got a couple of ideas here, which please bear in mind, these ideas, they just kind of come, even as I'm talking here, they kind of pop into my head. So they're not fully fleshed out. What's up with me and flushes on this channel, man? Fully fleshed out ideas. My first one would be that, you know, towards the end of your exploration, right before you get into, let's say, the mini boss or the final boss fight, you know, there's maybe 2 or 3 paths that can be considered quote unquote bonus paths with maybe 2 or 3 fights in them. But whoever you send into that path, they're the only person that can go in there. You know, they cannot use any items. So if they can't make it through, they're not going to be available for the mini or for the final boss. But, you know, you get a decent amount of points for getting, if you can get through 1 or 2 or 3 of the fights, whatever it may be, which will help differentiate, you know, your skilled players maybe better than theirs, and they can't get through, but they don't have any items they can use, so you get those bonus points. Or maybe having something where we change up the mini bosses a little bit, or maybe give this in addition to where you've got a couple of fights throughout the map where, you know, it's a one-time fight. Like you run in there and it's got a shorter timer. So let's say instead of being a 3-minute fight, we'll make it a 1.5 minutes. You got 90 seconds to do as much damage to this enemy as possible. And in turn, you know, the amount of damage that you can do will decrease a certain aspect of the final boss. So let's say one of these nodes that you run up against on the left side, you know, this particular mini boss, quote unquote, is feeding the enemy a health boost. And so if you can do, you know, 40,000 damage, it lowers his overall health by, you know, 4%. Or if you can do 100,000 damage, it lowers it by 10%. Or, you know, just these are all just kind of random numbers that I'm throwing out there. but it would be an intriguing, interesting fight because you can only do it once. You've got a very limited amount of time. You're going to want to try to stay alive for the whole thing to do as much damage as possible. So you're going to want to send in your skilled players, and those of you that have skilled players will be rewarded by making the end boss a little bit easier. Whereas those who fail in their attempt, who are not as skilled, or who make mistakes, the final boss is going to be at his full power, and that could be for health, attack power, power gain, increase to a signature ability, or a class disadvantage, or I don't know, whatever you want to make it. Again, I'm just trying to throw out some ideas there of things that we haven't really seen come to the game. That it's not like they can't come. It's just we've never been kind of led outside of what we see with our current makeup, our current map makeup. I do realize that this is the very first war that we have fought since the changes. So there's a good possibility that it could get better, things could change. Kabam could have some ideas up their sleeve that they're going to present to us with this new map layout, new portal system that I'm not aware of. But at this point, I just kind of wanted to bring to you my current thoughts, concerns, ideas in regards to Alliance War as we see it right now. I hate to be like real Debbie Downer, so I hope that I have, with my concerns, brought along some ideas, I think, to help kind of fix some of that. But as I mentioned in last night's live stream, like if we just had an open forum discussion for just a day and just let the creative people that are in the community just run wild, I guarantee you we would have all kinds of great ideas to implement, not only in Alliance War, but in all aspects of the game. So with that, I will end the video just by saying, if you have any great ideas, I would love to hear them, share them with the community. We'll open up a discussion down below. And certainly let me know. I know this is a very different sort of style, and I probably should have approached it in a more professional manner with having a layout of things that I want to discuss, but honestly, that's just not how I roll. I kind of turn on the microphone and I just begin to talk, just basically what's on my mind. And maybe you guys enjoy that, maybe you don't. I don't know. I guess again, leave feedback for me down below. I don't even have a name for this this style, this series, whatever I'm going to call it. I sent out a tweet a little bit ago asking for some ideas on names. So maybe I have stolen somebody's name that they've posted up over on Twitter. Maybe I didn't get any good ideas and I've had to make up something on my own, which means that it's going to be terrible. But either way, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this last, I don't know, was it 15-20 minutes has provided you a little bit of background noise while you do whatever it is that you're doing, which hopefully you are grinding for Archangel. I should be doing that. I'm still way behind. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed it. Until I see you all in the next one, have a great day.